2024. So now, if you check grade 12s, this paper is actually allocated 2 hours, of which you are expected to collect all of these 150 marks. We are not expecting you to miss any mark. Okay, right, grade 12s. So now, remember, before you can actually jump onto answers, you should always start by going through the set of instructions given and information. So now, if you check the set of instructions and information given, the first one says answer 4 questions as follows in the answer book. So now, section A consists of 30 marks, of which it is compulsory. And section B also consists of 80 marks. And a learner is given actually 3 questions, of which expectation is to select only 2 questions. So now when it comes to section E, section C, you're actually given 2 questions, and expectation is to select only 1 question. So now grade 12s always make it a mandate for yourself that you understand each and every set of instruction are given. Okay, right. So now the second one says answer only the required number of questions. Answers in excess of the required number will not be marked. Okay, right. So now instruction number 3 says number the answers correctly according to the numbering system used in this question paper. So now what I've actually observed is that most of you guys, grade 12s, you love mixing what answers or questions. You'll find one has started answering section A, question 1. Then after question 1, she or he jumps onto section C, now answering the essay question. So in that regard, you are going to be mostly disadvantaged, because now you are failing to follow the numbering system that is actually used on a question paper. So now you're advised always to follow the numbering system used in a question paper. And also the instruction number 4 says write the question number above each answer. And also number 5 says read the question carefully to understand. Make sure that you read a question to understand it. Don't just scrutinize. Then after scrutinizing, you start answering. That is totally wrong. Okay, number 6 states that start each question on a new page. So now number 7 says leave 2 to 3 lines between subsections of questions. And then number 8 says answer the questions in full sentences and ensure that the format, content, and context of your responses comply with the cognitive requirements of the questions. And number 9 says use only blank or blue ink. So number 10, you may use a non-programmable calculator. So now the last but not the least, which is instruction number 11, it says write neatly and legibly. So now grade 12, what I can actually tell you is that the moment you fail to follow the instructions, it means that you have totally failed the exam, because now following of instructions, they actually considered as part of the examination. Okay, right. So now let's check question 1 in section A. Remember, this is compulsory. So now you are expected to answer everything under this question, and you're expected to collect all the given set of marks. Okay, right. So now let's check 1.1. So now 1.1 reads as follows. Various options are provided as possible answers to the following questions. So now choose the answer and write only a letter. An example is given there inside the brackets where it is indicated that you must focus on letter A to D next to the question numbers from question 1.1.1 to question 1.1.8, and you're expected to write the answers in your booklet. And an example is given that whenever you're answering, just select only a letter. Don't select a letter and you write the description that appears on that particular letter. Okay, right. And again, grade 12, if you still remember the strategy that I gave you whenever you answer multiple choice question, I always advise you that make sure that you apply elimination method. When you apply elimination method, it means that you're going to go through each and every set of the answer or option given. So now you're going to scratch out the options that you think they are not needed at all. Okay. Right. So now let's check the first question, which is question 1.1.1. So now question 1.1.1 reads as follows. What is the function of the Johannesburg Security Exchange in the capital market? So now the function of this in the capital, remember the capital market is where the long-term loans are actually being bought and sold. So now in this regard, our appropriate answer is going to be A. Okay, right, grade 12. So now let's move on to the second question, which is 1.1.2. It says the hours worked in construction is an example of a dash indicator. That is an example of a lacking indicator. Okay, right, grade 12. So now let's move on to the next question. So now the next question that we have 1.1.3. So now 1.1.3 reads as follows. According to the international benchmark, the debt ratio is supposed to be 100% of the nominal GDP. So now it means that our appropriate answer in this regard is going to be D. So now let's move on to the next question. This is 1.1.4. So it reads as follows. An amount that accounts for statistical errors and ensures that the current and capital accounts sum out to zero is actually known as balancing item. So now it means our appropriate answer is going to be C. So now let's move on to the next question, which is 1.1.5. It reads as follows. A government requirement that reflects trade and commercial activities with a particular country or the trading of goods. It is actually known as a tariff. Okay, right, grade 12. So now let's move on to the next question, which is 1.6. So now, moving on to 1.1.6, we actually saying that the expanded public works programs are mostly labor. They are mostly labor intensive. So now it means that in this regard, our appropriate answer is going to be A. Okay, right, grade 12. Now let's move on to the next question, which is 1.1.7. It reads as follows. The need for intervention at a grassroots level of, to ensure effective livelihood improvement in communities should be a hunger approach. Okay, right. So now let's move on to the last question under multiple choice, which is 1.1.8. Which components, in addition to the gross domestic product per head, are included in the Human Development Index? So now our appropriate answer in this regard is going to be B. Okay, right, grade 12. Now let's move on to the next set of questions, which is question what? The next set of questions, which is question 1.2. So now, if we check question 1.2, it contains columns, which is column A and column B. So now, remember, grade 12, under column A, you're actually or always given the concepts and the study or terms under study, and in column B, you are actually given the definition, the description, the characteristics, the functions, and the features. Okay, right. So now let's check how 1.2 reads. It does read as follows. Choose a description from column B that matches the item in column A. Write only a letter A to I next to the question numbers. So now you're actually given that we have 1.2.1 to 1.2.8 in your answer book, and also an example is given there. Okay, right. So now in this regard, we are saying that the marginal propensity to consume, it is what a disposable income increases an increase in personal consumption spending. So now our appropriate answer in this regard is going to be F. So now the next one, we have 1.2.2, where we have goods nets cycles. So now this cycles are caused by changes in the building and construction industry. So now it means our appropriate answer in this regard is going to be G. So now we also have 1.2.3 for value-added tax. So now the value-added tax here, we are actually referring to the current percentage charged on goods and services is 15% per purchased item. So now our appropriate answer in this regard is going to be A. So now let's check our 1.2.4. So now 1.2.4, it does read as follows. It says that comparative advantage. So now in this regard, our appropriate answer is going to be I, where we are saying that is the ability of a country to produce a good more efficiently than other other countries. So now in this regard, our appropriate answer is going to be I. Okay, right. Grade 12. So now let's move on to 1.2.5. It says inbound industries. So now these inbound industries, they normally requires protection and support to become more competitive in the market. So now it means that our appropriate answer in this regard is going to be C. Okay, right, grade 12s. Now let's move on to the next question. The next question that we have 1.2.6. So 1.2.6 reads as follows. We have a moral persuasion. So in this regard, our moral persuasion is when South African Reserve Bank consults with banks to act in a responsible manner based on economic conditions. So now in this regard, our appropriate answer is going to be, in this regard, our appropriate answer is going to be H. So now we have H as our questions, but make sure that you understand each and every question. Okay, grade 12s. Yes, as I did say that our appropriate answer for 1.2.6 is H. Okay, right. So now let's move on to the next question. The next question that we have 1.2.7, where we have industrial development corporation. So now the appropriate answer for industrial development corporation is going to be set up by government to promote economic growth industries in South Africa. So it means that our appropriate answer in this regard is going to be D. So now we also have 1.2.8 for Gini coefficient. So now in this one, it is depicted in the Lorentz curve and shows the distribution of income. So our appropriate answer, it is going to be E. Okay. So now grade 12s, as I did say that when it comes to these particular types of questions, make sure that you give all your efforts and all your thinking. Okay, right. So now let's move on to the next question, which is 1.3. So now 1.3 reads as follows. Give one term for each of the following descriptions. Write only the term next to question numbers. An example is given there of 1.3.1 to 1.3.6 in your answer book. So now abbreviations, acronyms, and examples will not be actually accepted. Okay, right. So now let's check 1.3.1. So now 1.3.1 reads as follows. An initial change in spending leads to a more significant and broader impact on overall economy. So this is nothing but multiplier effect. Multiplier. This is multiplier effect. Okay, right. So now the second one, which is 1.3.2, it reads as follows. The process of analyzing economic data and making predictions on the trends of economic fluctuations. This is nothing but economic forecasting. Economic forecasting. Okay, right. So now 1.3.3 reads as follows. Strikes, riots, and acts of mass disobedience in society. This is referred to as civil disobedience. Civil disobedience. Okay, right. So now let's check 1.3.4. It reads as follows. A protocol to promote free trade among Argentina, Brazil, Paraguay, and Uruguay. So now the appropriate answer in this regard is going to be preferential trade agreement. Preferential trade agreement. Okay, right. So now let's check 1.3.5. The increase in the capacity of a country to produce goods and services. So this is nothing but economic growth. Economic growth. Okay, okay, right. Grade 12. So now let's move on to what the second or the next question, which is 1.3.6, a measure of monthly changes in price for a range of consumer products. So this is nothing but consumer price index. Consumer price index. Okay, right. So now let's actually move on to the next question. The next question is question 2. So now remember, grade 12s, in this question or this section, you are expected to answer only 2 questions and then you drop 1 question. So now the first question reads as follows. Name 2 examples of capital goods sold in a product market. So now the capital goods that we have machinery, we have vehicles, and also we have the likes of raw materials and many more. So in this regard, we are going to say we have we have vehicles. We also have machineries. Okay, right. So now 2.1.2 reads as follows. Why does the free rider problem cause government to provide public goods and services? This is because the private business producers cannot produce them, then offer them for sale in the market like private commodities. We are saying that the private business producers cannot produce them, then offer them for a sale in the market like private community. Okay, right? We are saying that the private business, the private business producers cannot produce them, then offer them for sale in the market like private commodities. Okay, right. So now, grade 12s, we are saying that why does the free rider problem cause the government to provide public goods and services? We are saying that it is because the private business producers cannot produce them, then offer them for sale in the market like private commodities. Okay, right. So now let's move on to the next question. The next question reads as follows. Study the cartoon below and answer the questions that follow. Okay, right. So now after studying this cartoon, we actually have to answer the questions follow. So now it says that identify the phase in the business cycle, which is portrayed in the cartoon above. So now the phase that is actually what portrayed is a depression. We have depression. Okay, right. So now let's check the second question, which is 2.2.2. Name the fiscal policy instrument from the information provided in the cartoon. So now we have what? We have government spending. Government spending. Okay, right. So now let's check what? Now let's check 2.2.3. Briefly describe the term government policy. So now government policy is a declaration of government political activities, plans, and intention relating to a particular cause. So now you're saying that declaration, this is a declaration a declaration of government political activities political activities plans and intentions relating to a particular cause. So now you're saying that a declaration of government political activities, plans, and intentions relating to a particular cause. So now, okay, right. So now let's check 2.2.4. What is the relationship between unemployment and lacking indicators? So now unemployment is when an individual who is not employed and seeking employment cannot find one. But now when it comes to lagging indicators, measurable vector that changes some time after the economic, financial, or business variable with which it is correlated changes. So now we're saying that unemployment is when an individual who is not employed and seeking employment cannot find work. So, but now when it comes to lagging indicators, so now lagging indicators, we are saying that a measurable vector that changes some time of the economic or financial or business variable with which it is correlated changes. You're saying that measurable vector that changes time after the economic employment, economic financial, or business variable with which it is correlated changes. Okay, right, grade 12. So now we are saying that under 2.2.2, we have unemployment where it is actually refers to an individual who is not employed and seeking employment cannot find one. So now lacking indicator, we're actually saying that measurable vector that changes sometimes of the economic, financial, or business variable with which it is correlated changes. Okay, right. So now let's check 2.2.5. 2.2.5. So now let's check how can the South African Reserve Bank use the Phillips curve to forecast inflation. So remember, when we talk of forecasting, in this regard, we are referring to prediction of economic activities in future. So in this regard, we are saying that when inflation rate is more than unemployment rate, this will South African Reserve Bank will increase interest rate and lower money supply. But when unemployment is more than inflation, then in that regard, South African Reserve Bank will decrease interest rate and increase money supply in the economy. So now we are saying that when inflation rate is more than unemployment, then South African Reserve Bank will increase interest rate, and decrease money supply. Okay, right. So now the next one, because of 2 marks, we are saying that when unemployment rate is more than inflation rate, then South African Reserve Bank will decrease interest rate and increase money supply. Okay, right, grade 12. So now we're saying that when unemployment rate is more than inflation rate, then South African Reserve Bank will decrease interest rate and increase money supply in that regard. So now remember, in this regard, central bank is using monetary policy to gauge or to stimulate the flow of goods and services in an economy or in a market. Okay, right. So now let's check 2.3. 2.3 reads as follows. Study the extract below and answer the questions that follow. So now the government is considering restructuring its portfolio of state-owned enterprises and putting the major corporations into a single vehicle. So now the essential thinking behind this idea is to try to reverse the massive flight of skills and human capital that has reduced a whole range of once proud and entities into the dysfunctional and also uncompetitive and degraded organization. So now 2.3.1 reads as follows: give one reason for public sector failures associated with workers. So now one of the reasons of this is lack of public servant skills and training. Here we are saying that lack of public servants skills and training. Okay, right. So now let's move on to 2.3.2. Name one state-owned enterprises in South Africa. So now we have Eskom. So right. So now the next one says briefly describe the term public sector or public service provision. So now it says this public sector provision is a commodity or a service that every member of a society can use without reducing its availability to other members. We are saying that this is nothing but a commodity or a service that every member of a society can use without reducing its availability to other individuals. Okay, right. So now you're saying that this is nothing but a commodity or service, a commodity or service that every member of a society, can use without reducing its availability to all others. Okay, right. We are saying that community or service that every member of a society can use without reducing its availability to all members. Okay, right. So now let's check 2.3.4. What are the benefits of state-owned enterprises being incorporated into a single unit? So now, in most cases, grade 12, there are a lot of the benefits of our state-owned enterprises, and then the benefits of the state-owned enterprises is the creation of employment opportunities. Creation of employment. Creation of employment opportunities. Okay, right, grade 12s. So now let's move on to the next question. The next question we have 2.3.5. So now 2.3.5 reads as follows. How does the lack of funds in the private sector impact on infrastructure provisions in South Africa? So now it causes delay because businesses will fail to pay tax to the government to improve infrastructure. And also, if our households fail to pay income tax, the government will not be in the position to improve such expected infrastructure. So now we are saying that it causes delay. It causes delay. It causes delay because Because it's delayed because businesses will fail. Businesses will fail to pay tax to the government. Tax to the government to improve infrastructure. To improve infrastructure. Okay, so now also the second one, saying that households fail to pay income tax. Households fail to pay income tax. Then the government will struggle to improve infrastructure. Okay, right, grade 12. So now let's check 2.4. So now 2.4 reads as follow. Briefly discuss the basic prices using the product or production method. So now if you still remember, production method is where now figures under each and every sector is taken into account. So now it means that in this regard, we check production under primary sector. We also check production under secondary sector. And lastly, we also check production under tertiary sector. So now we are saying that in this regard, under production method, basic prices are calculated by adding subsidies on products and subtracting taxes on products. And also, we are saying that basic prices are equal to value added by primary sector, secondary sector, and tertiary sector. We are saying that under production method, basic prices are calculated by adding subsidies on products, and subtracting taxes on products. Okay, right. So now, and then also we are saying that basic prices are equal to value added by primary sector, secondary sector, and tertiary sector. Okay, right. So now let's move on to 2.5. 5 grade 12s. It says evaluate the role of the public sector in the economy with special reference to its economic responsibilities in the African context. So now in this regard, we are having promotion of economic growth. We also have promotion of full employment. We also have income distribution. We also have established price stability and control inflation. And we also have economic equity. Saying that we have economic promotion, of the following. So one, we have economic growth. Then the second one, we have full employment. Full employment. And then the third one, we have income distribution. Income distribution. And then another one, establish price stability. Price stability and control inflation. Okay, right. So now lastly, we also said that economic equity should also be maintained. We also have economic equity. Okay, so right, grade 12. So now you're saying that there should be a promotion of the flow of economic growth, full employment, income distribution, establish price stability, and control inflation, as well as economic equity. Okay, right. So now let's move on to the next question, grade 12. Next question, we have question 3. So now this question reads as follows. Name 2 measures of social indicators are related to urbanization. So now we have migration as well as natural growth rate. So now here we are saying that we have migration as one of the measures, and also we have a natural growth rate. Okay, right, grade 12. So now let's move on to 3.1.2. It says, how does an increase in the interest rate on bank deposit impact savings? In this regard, savings is going to be discouraged. It discourages savings. Okay, right. So now let's move on to 3.2. Study extra below and answer the questions that follow. Japan South Africa Business Forum are launched. So now we say that we have the Japan South Africa Business Forum launched on the back of a strong trade surplus for South Africa. So it can invigorate the economic relationship and boost green industries. So now Japan is currently South Africa's 4th largest market for exports after China, the USA, and the Germany. Okay, right. So now the question, which is 3.2.1, reads as follows. Name the trade protocol of which South Africa and China are members. So now these are members of BRICS. Okay, so now let's check 3.2.1. Give any one argument in favor of free trade. So now free trade allows countries to specialize in industries in which they have a comparative advantage. You're saying that free trade allows countries, it allows countries to specialize, in industries specialize in industries in which they have comparative advantage. Okay, right. So now let's check 3.2.3. Briefly describe the term bilateral trade. So now the bilateral trade is an agreement between two countries to mutually expand their markets. So now this is nothing but an agreement between two countries to mutually expand their markets. Okay, right. So now let's check 3.2.4. So now 3.2.4, it reads as follows. What does a strong trade surplus for South Africa refer to in the Japan-South Africa business forum? So now if you still remember, there's a forum that actually launched according to this scenario or extract. So now Japan is one of South Africa's most important trade partners and a leading investor in a number of South African sectors. So now Japan invested in mining, machinery, agribusinesses, and financial services. Also, Japan and South Africa have an agreement on green industrialization, electric vehicle technologies, and green hydrogen. And also, the forum agreed to a visual road shows to highlight South African opportunities to more business skills development and manufacturing. So now you're saying that Japan invested in mining. Japan invested in mining, machinery, agribusinesses, and financial services. Okay, right, grade 12. So now let's move on to the next question, which is 3.2.5. So now it says, how do green industries contribute to export promotion? So now green exports allow countries to foster economic, social, and environmental sustainability. So also issuing of cash grants. These grants are made in order to reduce the total cost of production. Also participation in national pavilion, exhibitions. Government ministries conclude future treatment or trade agreements for our business people. And also businesses may also be given refunds on import tariffs or rebates in taxes on or profits. And also a business or businesses may be given total tax exemption if it sells up to operations in a preferred industrial area. Okay, right. So now we are saying that a business may be given total tax exemption if it sets up operations operations in a preferred industrial area. Then also saying that businesses may also be given total tax import tariffs or rebates on taxes, rebates in taxes on profits. Okay, right. We are saying that a business may be given total tax exemption if it sets up operations in a preferred industrial area. And also we are saying that businesses may also be given total tax import tariffs or rebates in taxes on profits. Okay, right, grade 12s. So now let's move on to the next question, which is 3.3. So now 3.3 reads as follows. Study the diagram below and answer the questions follow. So now challenges that affect the development of South Africa. So now let's go through this set of a diagram given. So we have challenges there. We have poverty and inequality, too few jobs, crumbling infrastructure, resources intensive economy, exclusive planning, poor education, and also high disease burden, and even public service corruption, divided communities. So now, right. So now the question says, name one example of crumbling infrastructure in South Africa that affect development in a country. So now that is corruption. 3.3.2 says provide one benefit kind or benefit in natura that is provided by the central government. So now they provide with a creation of job opportunities. Creation of job opportunities. Okay, so now let's check 3.3.3. Briefly describe the term economic development. Economic development is an improvement in terms of the standard of living of the household. So now we are saying that this is an improvement, an improvement in terms of the standard of living by households. Okay, right. So now let's check 3.3.4. Why is unequal public service a challenge to the South African economy? So now this is a challenge because high levels of inequality are actually associated with patterns of economic growth that is disproportionate benefit to the wealthy rather than reaching the bottom 50% of the population. We are saying that high levels of inequality are associated with the patterns of economic growth that disproportionately benefit the wealthy rather than reaching the bottom 50% of the population. Okay, right. So now we're saying that high levels of inequality are associated with patterns of economic growth, patterns of economic growth, patterns of economic growth that disproportionately proportionately benefit the wealthy rather than reaching the bottom 50% of the population. Okay, we are saying that high levels of inequality are associated with patterns of economic growth, that this proportionately benefiting the wealthy rather than reaching the bottom 50% of the population. Okay, right. So now let's check 3.5. How does corruption affect poverty and inequality? Corruption what actually increases income inequality and poverty through lower economic growth. So also biased tax system favoring the rich and well-connected, but also poor people are actually being left out. Okay, right. So we are saying that corruption increases inequality. Corruption increases inequality and poverty. Corruption increases inequality and poverty through lower economic growth. Lower economic growth. Again, we are saying that biased tax system favoring favoring the rich, and well-connected then poor targeting of social programs. Poor targeting of social programs. Okay, right. So now let's check 3.4. So now 3.4 reads as follows. Briefly discuss the importance of measuring the performance of the economy. So now the performance of the economy is needed to be measured so as to know the level of production of goods and services by businesses, and also to be able to assess the standard of living for the household, and also to be able to improve production of local businesses so as to have more of the exports than imports. And lastly, so that the government can be in the position to collect tax from households and businesses. Okay, right. So now we are saying that to know to know the level of production, to know the level of production of goods and services by firms, and also to be able to assess the standard of living, by households. Also, to be able to improve, production of local businesses, production by local businesses, so as to have more of exports than imports. So as to have more exports, to have more exports than imports. Okay, right. So now let's move on to the last point. Because of 8 marks, the last point says, so that the government can be in the position to collect taxes from households and firms. Okay, right, grade 12. So now let's move on to the last question, and question 3. Why are ad valorem tariffs used as a means of protectionism? So now ad valorem, they're actually used as a means of protectionism because tariffs raise the cost of importing products from abroad, but not from domestic firms. Also, they have the effect of protecting the domestic firms that compete with imported products, and also to protect domestic producers and wage rates from lower priced importers, and also to protect domestic job opportunities. Okay, right. So now 3.5, we are saying that to protect domestic job opportunities, to protect job opportunities, and also we're saying that to protect domestic producers Protect domestic producers. And wage rate from lower priced imports. Lower priced imports. And now another one is saying that they have the effect. They have the effect. They have the effect of protecting. They have the effect of protecting the domestic firms, that compete with imported products. Okay, so now also we are saying that tariffs raise the cost of importing products, from abroad, but not from domestic firms. Okay, right, Kratos. So now we can actually move on to the next question, which is question 4. So now question 4, in particular 4.1, it reads as follow. 4.1.1, name the 2 turning points in a business cycle. So now we have what we have a peak and a trough. So now another one says, why are trade barriers necessary for the protection of our natural resources? So now they are actually important because they do protect jobs in a country, then also protect local products from foreign competition and to encourage local industries. We are saying that to protect jobs, in a country, protect local products, from foreign competition, and to encourage local industries. Okay, right. So now let's move on to the next question, which is question 4.2. So 4.2 reads as follows. Study the diagram below and answer the questions that follow. We have household firms, Then from there, we have goods and services, consumption expenditure, vector payments, and vectors of production. So now 4.2.1 reads as follows. Name the participant that is revenue through personal income tax. This is what government. Identify one monetary flow that moves through the vector market. This is nothing but what income, and this, remember, this is the income that is received by the household. That is coming from what? That is coming from income received by household, received by households after selling the vectors of production in the vector market to firms, so that firms can produce or process or manufacture goods and services. So now let's check 4.2.3 reads as for briefly describe the term vectors of production. When you talk of vectors of production, we refer to inputs that are actually applied by different set of firms to process or manufacture goods and services. So now we are saying that this is nothing but inputs used by firms to manufacture goods and services, right? So now let's check 4.2.1. What effect does low spending have in what low spending have in a goods market? So now this will result in market failure where supply is higher than demand. This will result in, it will result in market failure where supply is greater than demand. Okay, right. So now let's move on to the next question, which is question 4.2.5. So now 4.2.5 reads as follows. How does a negative multiplier impact on income in the circular flow model? So now this caused an initial fail or fall in national income. And also unemployed workers will also spend less, leading to lower demand elsewhere in the country. So also knock-on effects and a bigger final drop in GDP will take place, as well as the changes in total output to be greater than the changes in spending that cost it. Okay, right? You're saying that knock-on effects, and a bigger final drop, in GDP, which is gross domestic product. And also we said that changes in total output to be greater than the changes in spending that cost it. Seeing that changes in total output to be greater than the change in spending, that caused it. So now this causes what? A fall in national income. Okay, So now you're saying that knock-on effects and a bigger final drop in GDP, also changes in total output to be greater than the change in spending that caused it. And that actually results in fall in national income. Okay, right, grade 12s. So now let's move on to the next question, which is 4.3. So now 4.3 reads as follows. Study the graph below and answer the questions that follow. So now we have South African labor productivity growth, and we have some axes there. We also have the curve that shows labor productivity from October 2020, January 2021, April 2021, July 2021, October 2021, January 2022, April 2022, July 2022, October 2022, and also January 2023, and April 2023. So now 4.3.1 says identify the period with the lowest productivity in the graph. So now if you check here, the lowest productivity that we have is this one of minus 7.98.1, which takes place January 2023. So now this is going to be January 2023. Okay, right. So now grade 12s, let's move on. What one indicator used to measure employment? So now the indicator that is normally used to measure employment is coincident indicator. Coincident indicator. Okay, so now I'll briefly describe the term productivity. So now when we talk of productivity, productivity is the manufacturing of goods and services per individual. So we are saying that manufacturing of goods and services per individual. Okay, right. So now let's move on to 4.3.4. Explain the reasons for the decrease of labor productivity between July 2021 and January 2023. One of the reasons that you can actually here take into account, it is because of COVID-19. Because of COVID-19. So now COVID-19 is one of the reasons why we are having low labor productivity. Because if you still remember, during the era of COVID-19, most of businesses were shut down. And also there was restriction in terms of a movement. So it wasn't easy for a lot of businesses to engage into higher sales of their goods and services because now customers were locked inside their own houses. Okay, right. So now let's move on to the next question. The next question here, 4.3.5. So now it says, why should a country evaluate the efficiency and effectiveness of its workforce? So now, in this regard, a country should actually check what the effectiveness and the efficiency because of improving efficiency of inputs. Here, because of improving the efficiency. Because of improving the efficiency of inputs, improving efficiency of inputs, efficiency of inputs, and also a reduction in costs, and also allocative efficiency, and also technical or productive efficiency, or productive efficiency. Okay, right. So now let's move on to 4.5. Evaluate the impact of globalization or international trade. So now globalization has resulted in greater interconnectedness or connections among markets around the world. So now awareness of business opportunities in the far corners of the globe. Also, more investors can access new investment markets at a greater distance than before. Also enables the coming together of individuals, corporations, and resources from different countries. Okay, right. We are saying that globalization resulted in greater interconnections interconnectedness among markets around the world. Okay. And also awareness of business opportunities, in the far corners of the globe. Also, more investors can access new investment markets at a greater distance than before. Also, it enables the coming together of individuals, corporations, and resources from different countries, from different countries. Okay, great talk. So now let's move on to what the next question, or the last section of the question paper. So now let's move on to section C. So now choose one question. As I did explain this, that you're expected to choose one question under this, and you have to have your introduction of 2 marks, the body of 26 marks, and also additional part of 10 marks, as well as the last conclusion of your essay. Okay, right, grade 12. So now here, let's check. We have question 5. So now question 5, the structure of the essay under economics. This is going to be your body. So now this is going to be main body, 26 marks main body. This is going to be your additional part. This is your additional part. So now yours now is to write conclusion. Remember, conclusion, you write your own opinion. Also, we have one opinion. You write your own opinion. Okay, right. So now also you must you must have the introduction. So now remember, under introduction, define a concept. Okay, right. So now let's check our question 5. So now the introduction in this regard, we are going to explain international trade. So now when we talk of international trade under our introduction, remember we are fighting for 2 marks, and international trade is nothing but a process of buying and selling of goods and services amongst different set of countries. So now let's check what main body of 26 marks. So now main body of our 26 marks says discuss in detail the demand reasons for international trade. So now the demand reasons in this regard, we are going to check the level of economic development and income. And also we are going to check the differences in consumption patterns by the household. And also we are going to check different consumer wants or tastes or preferences. And also we are going to check the likes of international migration. Then from there as well, we are going to check out different levels of technical development, and also we have to pay much attention towards the cost of production, and also the population size in this regard also plays a major role. Okay. Right. So now moving on to our additional part of 10 marks. It says, how does the manipulation of the rand affect the foreign exchange rate? Guys, if you still remember, when we talk of exchange rate, we refer to actually converting or actually matching one currency to other currencies. So now in this regard, so now remember, if our currency is strong, it means that the economic activities in that particular country, they are very, very high. And also there's full employment of resources. And also if we check, the moment we have the currency that is very weak compared to other currencies, in that regard, it means that our country is going to be in a disadvantaged side, because now it is going to be needed to pay more of the money to buy from other countries. But now if our currency is much stronger compared to other countries, it means that our economy or country is going to spend less to buy from other countries. And also, if you still remember, if our currency is very strong, so now it's either the central bank has to chip in to come up with the devaluation of the currency, because it's very, very strong, and the moment it's weak, then the central bank has to come into play now to give it what evaluation, meaning making it very strong. Also in the same manner, the market forces of demand and supply can actually manipulate the behavior of the currency. The moment the currency is very strong compared to other currencies, in that regard, then depreciation is going to take place. The moment then the appreciation is actually taking place in that regard, because now our currency is more stronger than other currencies. But the moment our currency is very low compared to other currency, which is very weak, then in that regard, it means that there's a depreciation of our currency compared to other currency. Okay, right, grade 12. So now let's move on to question 6. So also question 6, in the same manner, you must introduce what the subheading or the heading of introduction. And remember, under introduction, you are expected to define, and also you have to give what conclusion, where you give your own opinion, or even if you don't give your own opinion, but make sure that you guys you do what? You understand the concept. Even the concept that you are going to write under this, you don't repeat the concepts that you did indicate under your body. Okay, right. So now you remember, I did say that this 26 marks, it makes our main body, and while this one of 10 marks, it is comprising of our additional part. Okay, right. So now discuss in detail South African initiatives or endeavors in regional development. Okay, guys, if you still remember, South Africa is actually putting into place a lot of the programs to make sure that they improve our regional development. So let's check the likes of special economic zones, and we also have a lot of other regional development. So now, if you still remember, what I have actually observed, even now, even when we are watching news, I've seen there are a lot of places where South Africa as a country has actually preserved those lands or those places for future economic activities. So now that's how far they have actually gone. Okay, right. So now let's check our additional part. How do municipalities use good governance to promote industrial development in their communities? So now if we can actually check, most of the municipalities, what they do, what I've seen, they make sure that they issue out different trainings so that people can gain knowledge and people can get skills, so that they can apply those skills in terms of developing a different set of them of the country. Okay, right, grade 12s. In this regard, I would love to say thank you very much. Surely you did enjoy the lesson. So now at this juncture, I would love to say shalom. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you very much.